Welcome to the Alphagenix Podcast, where every week we talk to incredible guests from around the world of biohacking, well-being, men's health, and more. Here's your host, co-founder of Alphagenix, Ross Tompkins.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome today's guest to the show, Zorrie from GlycanAge. Welcome.
Good morning, Ross. Really lovely to meet you, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for joining us. We met back in June at the Health Optimization Summit. But for anyone that doesn't know or hasn't heard of GlycanAge, who are you? What are you about? Where did you come from? And what's the plan for the future? There's lots of questions there.
There are a lot of questions there, but we can start from the beginning. So, glycobiology, where we come from, glycans, it's still an understudied area. If you look at neuroscience, for example, there are hundreds of thousands of scientists, or if you look at glycobiology, there are only about hundreds of scientists across the world. The field is quite new and it's very complex. It's very difficult, quite expensive to study, hence why it is understudied still. But it's getting popularity. Last year's Nobel Prize was won by Caroline Bertozzi for her work in glycobiology. So it is getting more and more popular. And we have studied glycans for the past 30 years. Our chief scientific officer was only 20 when he joined the lab. And he's been fascinated by the world of glycans ever since. He was initially looking at disease, but then shortly after that, he realized that it correlates with aging. And so these glycan structures that we study, they tend to change very early on before the onset of disease. And if you would like, I can perhaps give a little bit more detail for the audience as to what glycans are.
Definitely, yeah. That's what was going to be my next question. What is a glycan?
So glycans are complex sugars. They are one of the four main building blocks of life. Alongside DNA, protein, and lipids, you have carbs. So glycans are carbs, but complex carbs, not the sugars that we eat, because people often confuse them with that. And the process glycation, this is not glycation, this is not damage to our protein. This is a very enzymatic, structured chemical process that happens, and it's called glycosylation. So development of proteins and lipids together with glycans. And glycans shape us into multicellular beings. They enable the cell-to-cell communication. They also play more simpler roles. For example, glycans determine our blood groups. And also, there is a funny role that they do. Well, not funny, but more cheeky role that they do. Glycans actually help sperm invade the female immune system and help conception.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there are a lot to do with communication then, I guess.
Yes.
Communication either between a male and a female cell, or even cell to cell in our own body.
Cell to cell is, yes, absolutely. Glycans enable the cell to cell communication and shape us into multicellular beings. So this is a significant role of theirs, and what we see through our studies, and we've been mainly focused on glycans on the immune system throughout all these years, and we look at glycans on IgG, which is the most abundant antibody in our blood. Glycans tend to change up to 10 years in advance before disease manifestation, which is fascinating, but they also respond to lifestyle and environmental changes.
Wow. So it's an early warning sign of disease.
It is an early warning sign of disease, correct? And we have done a lot of studies to look at how specific glycan patterns can signal disease as
And does
well.
it indicate specific disease, or is it more general than that?
We do have studies that give details of around 72 unique disease patterns when it comes to glycans. We are actually unlocking about 11 of these diseases where we have very strong scientific validation behind, with a new clinician report, which will be available exclusively to physicians to start with. And we are looking to expand more and more disease and add more disease in the future to that list.
Wow, that's super interesting. So you can with a high degree of certainty predict 11 diseases and possibly 72.
We can say we can predict health outcomes. So there are studies that show glycans change up to 10 years in advance before cardiovascular disease, up to 7 years in advance before insulin resistance, for example. We're not a diagnostic tool yet. This is far in the future plan. But we can confidently say that if you have elevated biological age as measured by GlycanAge, there is a strong chance of you developing a disease in the future.
Wow.
And then specific glycan patterns can be identified for some of these diseases, and it would be a stronger correlation. But that does not mean necessarily that you will develop the disease, because it's a very early signal, and you can do a lot of lifestyle changes in order to reverse these processes and prevent them from happening at all.
Yeah. Can you predict, or does it give an early warning sign for infertility then, if it affects that communication between a male and a female cell? Because that would be really fascinating.
With hormones have significant impact on glycans, and we do see very sharp increase, for example, of biological aging in women who approach perimenopause and menopause. And I know there are studies that are currently being done with infertility, but we don't have the results just yet. So there is an ongoing study right now, and we are starting another one around fertility. We do expect to see different signals, yes, definitely. And women who are unable to conceive, we expect them to have elevated GlycanAge because of most likely bute inflammation in the body. But what is causing that and what are the exact processes, we don't know just yet.
So that's super interesting. It'd be interesting on the other side of things as well, because we provide men with hormones who are going through the andropause. So it'd be really interesting to see whether there's any correlation there as our hormones deteriorate from the male side of things.
What we know, so we have one of our partners in New York. He has a clinic, Joseph Raphael. His male protocols, he has spoken openly about them. Majority of his patients, male patients especially, who are on testosterone replacement therapy, they do come back very young. So we have clients who would be in their 60s with biological age of 20.
Wow.
So we do know that optimizing your hormones, especially when your body starts declining in hormones, does have a very positive effect.
Yeah, that's incredible. So how does your test calculate this biological age?
I don't exactly know the mechanism and algorithms behind it, because this is information kept in the lab. But when you have inflammation in the body caused by, let's say you've cut yourself and you get this acute inflammation, or you're fighting a virus, you get this acute inflammation. This inflammation is positive. However, as we age, naturally with time, our body tends to build this low-grade chronic inflammation, which is almost like having a persistent alarm in the background that just builds through time. This is known as inflammaging. And having a little bit of inflammation, the acute inflammation, is good, but if it stays with you for longer and it can accelerate with some different lifestyle interventions that are perhaps not optimal for your own biology, then it builds up and it makes you age at a much faster rate in comparison to your chronological age.
I love that. Inflammaging.
Inflammaging is what we look at, specifically chronic inflammation in the body, how it builds through time naturally with age, and some parts of it are driven by your genes as well. How you're aging can be determined by your genes. It's about 40% genetic, 40% natural passage of time, but also 20% is very much influenced by your lifestyle and your environment. And so we do know,
I was about to say, I guess your diet and your exercise, the quality of your sleep must all significantly affect that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we do have both research, solid research, to validate how different lifestyle interventions are affecting the aging processes in your body as measured by glycans. But we also have individual case studies where people have decided to share their story of what they've done in order to optimize this aging process in the body and reduce their biological age. And I can tell you both a little bit more about both of these.
Yeah, go for it. Definitely, it'd be really interesting.
So diet-wise, we have a study where 1,850 individuals were placed on 5 different diets. So initially, the study was caloric restriction, and with caloric restriction, they all improved biological aging. However, not everyone wants to be on caloric restriction all the time. So the second part of that study was those individuals were placed on 5 different diets. And half of them responded positively to the diet, whereas the other half of them responded negatively to that very same diet, even if the diet is perceived as a healthy one. So keto or another diet that people consider being a healthy one, which comes to say that there is no magic diet that can work for all of us. It's really down to personalized diet and nutrition, and what is optimal for me may not be optimal for you, and vice versa. So it's important for us to look at it in more detail, measure where possible, and make data-driven decisions rather than assume that I should be going vegan or I should be going keto or carnivore.
Yeah, so I love that. It kind of makes sense, I think, to instinctively what probably most of us know. We all look different. We shouldn't be surprised our insides are different as well. So there is no perfect diet. We are all different. Depends on our makeup, on our glycans.
Yes, absolutely. And then to further enhance diet, we do have, at the moment, we are doing a study that is placebo-controlled study with Zorrie, the gut health company, to see how personalized nutrition is impacting levels of chronic inflammation in the body. We don't have the data just yet. It's in the making. But we do have some individual user cases where people have incorporated at least 30 local as local as seasonal plants as they can into their diet, and plants that could be seeds, herbs, fruits, vegetables. It's not just it's a combined number of all these. And Dr. Nick Anger is a great example. He did his initial biological age was under his chronological age, so he was already aging at a faster rate in comparison to his chronological age. He decided to challenge this and see if he can further reduce that number. He incorporated 30 different plants from local organic farms as seasonal as possible. He didn't change anything else within 3 months. He was tracking everything through his aura, through his all other wearables that he had. He didn't even travel within those 3 months, just so he doesn't change the environment. And he was able, just within 3 months of time, to reduce his biological age by 6 more years, just through diet. And I am a person who also uses that intervention. Being inspired by him and others. This is originally a book by Dr. Jen Macchiocci that describes that method. And I have also seen, of course, it's a combination of other things that I did to improve my biological age, but this was one of them as well. So This is around diet, which is very interesting.
So just eat local produce as much as possible.
Yes, apparently the local produce carries information from your surroundings and environment and helps your body fight the negative effects of that same environment, which is super fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. So are you going to tell me that you're really 82?
Well, no.
Really well.
My chronological age currently is 39. And the last test I did was back in June, and it was down to 31 biologically.
Fantastic.
But that has been years of work to get it down. It's usually around my chronological age. My biological age is pretty much the same as chronological age most times, apart from once when it was 10 years above. I am managing an underactive thyroid without medication. This was my choice. So I haven't got a diagnosis, but if I go to a doctor and if they look at my thyroid markers, they would probably say that I've got Hashimoto.
Yeah.
So about 5 years ago, I decided that, so I was able to discover this quite early on. I tested, I had high levels of chronic inflammation in the body. I didn't have any symptoms. I had pretty good lifestyle. So I was really surprised. I would say even shocked. That's why my GlycanAge is so high. And then we started digging further. There were a few things that contributed towards my biological age being higher. One of them was actually fasting. So fasting can be beneficial for many people. However, it does not work for everyone, not in extremes. So I was able to do intermittent fasting on a daily basis, 16 to 18 hours without any problem. However, I was already being very close to underweight. My BMI is just above 18, so close to being underweight. And that slowed down my metabolism and resulted in issues with my thyroid gland. So since then, I have reduced the interim. I still do daily fasts, and I have bulletproof coffee in the morning. But I have reduced the intermittent fasting window now, and I do fast 12 to 14 hours instead of 16 to 18, which seems to be working way better for my biology.
Got you. So it kind of goes back to that idea again that 50% of people might like keto, 50 don't, 50% will get on well with fasting, maybe 50% don't.
Yes, especially for women. Women do need to be cautious when doing intermittent fasting on a daily basis, because we need to time it according to our cycle as well. And when you're in certain phases of your cycle, intermittent fasting for prolonged periods of time is definitely not beneficial.
Yeah, my wife's tried fasting a few times and generally doesn't last very long, and then she gets quite hangry. Whereas I've done a 7-day fast. It doesn't affect my mood in the slightest. I guess we're all different.
We're all different, yes, exactly. And there is no standard human. Nothing works for everyone.
Yeah. What's the goal for chronological age and biological age? Should we be trying to get it 10 years less, 20 years less? And what does that mean? Does that mean you will live that much longer, or does it mean you are less likely to get disease? What's the sort of whole purpose, I guess, behind it?
So through the lens of glycans, since we look specifically at chronic inflammation in the body, having younger biological age means you're less likely to develop a disease in the future. So it's more health outcomes rather than length of life. We can't predict if you're going to live to 100, but we can say if you're going to live healthy years in your older years as well.
Yeah,
because
so
we have
increasing health span rather than lifespan.
Yes, yeah, exactly that. We have been great in increasing lifespan, but we haven't been so good in increasing the health span of people and humanity. So this is one of the goals that GlycanAge has as a mission, to extend the health span in humanity and prevent disease.
I love that because I don't think anyone would disagree that that's more important. And I have this conversation quite often with people. How old do you want to be? Do you want to live to 120, 150, 200? Would you like to be immortal? And I would like to live as long as I'm healthy. I don't want to be a burden on anyone or just not be able to move from my chair. But if I'm still sprightly, have all my faculties, I can still go walking and spend time with my loved ones, then sign me up for 200.
Yes, absolutely. Same here. But yeah, we do have many examples of our grandparents who take a handful of pills in order to maintain life after their 60s. So definitely extending health span is more important than lifespan.
Yeah.
And we can do both even better.
Yeah. Do you have a target, Zorrie? Would you like to get to a certain age?
For me, most important is to maintain my quality of life without having to take medication for my thyroid. I would love to get it even lower, but realistically, I don't know if that's completely possible. I have changed my lifestyle a lot for the past 4 years. I had to eliminate gluten. I have eliminated alcohol, pretty much sugar completely. It wasn't easy to start with, but right now I don't have any of these cravings. So I feel great. I don't feel like I'm suffering, because a lot of people I share with friends sometimes, I don't drink, I don't eat sweets, I don't I don't eat gluten, and they're like, are you even happy? Well,
What do you do?
what do you do? You get used to it, and you just adjust your lifestyle with time, but behavioral change is not easy, and it has taken me years to get into that state. And yeah, as long as you strive to be healthy, it's a journey. It's never only up, it's always up and down. Stress levels do affect me as well, and sometimes I don't have time to eat because I have a very busy schedule. My GlycanAge would always reflect that. So if we go through a very busy period, like last winter, for example, I gained 9 years up just within 6 months of time. Then
Wow.
I went back to my usual routine, and I was able to drop them down again. So it's very responsive. And And just within 3 to 6 months of time, you can change how different interventions or maybe any longevity drugs you're trying, diet, exercise routine, how are all of these affecting you on molecular level.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I have Hashimoto's as well, and sugar really affects me. So I just get this low level achy pain in my joints if I have too much sugar. So then I have to, as you say, it's up and down. So my diet will be great. I haven't drank in a couple of years now, but occasionally I'll eat too much chocolate and I feel it. So then I have to curb it again. It's interesting how our body tells us, it needs to change.
And you usually can sense all of that. With exercise, it's very interesting as well. There are a lot of people who consider exercise being healthy, and the more you exercise, the healthier you're going to be. What we see through research and individual examples as well is that if you are exercising too much, like too many days, very high intensity, without introducing sufficient amount of nutrition and recovery time, you're actually going to be aging and causing damage rather than it being beneficial.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you mentioned something interesting a moment ago. You just sort of said something about longevity medicine. So have you done any studies on, the introduction of, say, metformin to control insulin?
So we did look at metformin, and from what I know is healthy individuals who were placed on metformin, some of them responded positively to it and others had absolutely no response. Whereas individuals who are diabetic or pre-diabetic and were placed on metformin, they had a very positive outcome and they were able to reduce their biological aging, and actually some of them outlived their healthy peers just because they were on metformin. But again, it is not for everyone, and healthy individuals shouldn't just embark on taking metformin without really testing and seeing how it's affecting them. We do have an ongoing study with rapamycin as well.
Yeah, that's a super interesting one.
Yes.
What have you found so far?
So far, it really depends on the dose, and people who tend to increase their dose actually start to cause damage. But there is no, the study hasn't been completed yet, and we can't say exactly how it affects and what's the most appropriate dose. And it would, we suppose that it's going to come out as being very, very individual. But higher dose, because it suppresses the immune system, you don't want to suppress it too far, because then you can allow diseases like cancer invade your body.
Yeah.
So there is always this fine tuning is required when it comes to those interventions, and people should definitely be cautious about it.
Yeah, not just buy some online from some pharmacy in wherever.
Ideally, consult with health specialists, doctors, clinics when you're embarking on such interventions, because you can actually cause a lot more damage than good.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a chat the other day to a longevity doctor in the Cayman Islands, and he was working with it quite a lot over there, which was really interesting, getting his take on it. It's quite a fascinating area, sort of the longevity medicines, metformin, telmisartan, rapamycin. It's interesting to see where we're going. Maybe we will become immortal. You never know.
Yes, maybe. Who knows? We did a small study with NAD precursor, a company that we work with, Nuchido. You might have heard of Nuchido.
Yeah.
And
the owner is just around the corner from me.
Nicola, okay, fantastic. She's lovely. And so the study that we did with them, the initial study, we're doing a second one now, the initial study, they were on a very short period of time, so just 4 weeks, but there was 1 point something reduction in biological aging. They are conducting a longer study now, 3 months. So if that brings the same results, we would have more confidence saying that we're definitely seeing something, because the 4 weeks was a very small period of time to be reflected in glycan clock.
Yeah. So what's the plan for the future with GlycanAge? You know, where do you see everybody in the world, you know, being aware of their GlycanAge and tinkering and tailoring their lifestyle to suit?
We would love for glycan testing to become more accessible for wider community. Definitely, people can buy the test even now and test their GlycanAge, but it's an expensive test, so definitely not everyone would be able to afford it. And for us, the ultimate goal is to help humanity extend their health span, and making this test more accessible is part of it. What we also like to do is be able to get into the diagnostics market, because we do know that some of these tools can help us predict disease early on and help people avoid that disease. So in the long run, this is something that we see and we strive to achieve. What can happen is yet to be seen.
Yeah, and that would be incredible, wouldn't it? If you could have a test and it says, you know, you are likely to get X, Y, and Z in 10 years' time or 7 years' time, therefore do this.
Yes, that would definitely be empowering, and not everyone is still going to be willing to do it, because people are sometimes scared to know what might happen. But there are people who would like to be empowered with this information, and they can really benefit from it.
Yeah, I actually had this conversation with the doctor recently, and he said, I don't want to know. I don't want to know if I'm going to die of a heart attack in 10 years' time or whatever. I just want to live my life now to the full. And then if that happens, so be it. We're all different. So who do you typically work with now? Is it athletes? Is it biohackers? Is it perimenopausal ladies? Where are you finding the most uptake?
The most uptake is biohackers, health enthusiasts, and women approaching the perimenopausal, menopausal phase of their life. They're also, so we work directly with clinics as well, who work in optimizing health and lifespan. Another group of people is perhaps biohackers, health enthusiasts who are looking to optimize their individual health, and menopausal women. It's probably the three key groups of people that we work with at the moment.
And when they do a test and they get the results and it says, you know, they're 26 or whatever, does your test also then provide them with recommendations as well?
Yeah, each test comes with a consultation with a physician, and then you get personalized advice through that consultation on what you can do to improve your biological age and slow down the aging processes on molecular level in your body.
And is that normally diet, lifestyle, or is it supplements? Is it a little bit of both?
It would often be a combination of things. And yes, it could be changing diet or changing exercise routine. It could have advice to supplement different things, but because we don't have solid research behind all of these supplementations just yet, we try to refrain from giving that type of advice. During the consultation, we would lean on the scientifically backed up interventions more than anything else and advice around these.
Okay. And do you follow them up again to find out if they've done it?
Currently, this is something that we would love to do more often. We would usually reach out to people in 6 months or a year. And I think it would be fantastic if we can be hand-holding people throughout this journey. We do work with a lot of clinicians and partners all over the world. So we often recommend to our consumers, to our direct consumers, that they get in touch with one of these clinics that can help them on that journey, guiding them every week or every other week and giving them more personalized advice throughout that time. We do give the initial advice, and then we are very happy to do recommendations to different clinics and partners so people can have a more personalized long-term plan with physician.
Yeah, that sounds super exciting. So if people are watching and they're thinking, this sounds amazing, how do they get a GlycanAge test?
The GlycanAge test can be ordered through our website. It's you can maybe include a link after. It's a very simple at-home finger prick test. You only need 4 drops of blood, so it's not vials of blood like some other tests, which are a little bit difficult to get at home. At least I've tried and I've always struggled. So you only need 4 drops of blood. You leave the sample to dry for about 2 hours, and then you ship it back to us. We get it into the lab. Currently, we own the only lab in the entire world for GLYCAN high throughput analysis, which means glycons analyzed in high volumes. And there is no one else that can do that type of analysis in high volumes, which gives us this unfair advantage. Anyone looking to analyze glycans, they have to come to us. So the sample gets to our lab where we analyze it. It's a complex chemical process, 10-step chemical process in the lab. And once the results are ready, you receive an email and you can access your results through a personalized dashboard and schedule your consultation with a specialist.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Zorrie. It's been a pleasure learning about what you're up to at GlycanAge. A final question to leave you with. If you could be immortal, would you?
I probably would, to be honest. It would be really interesting. I've always been fascinated by the movies where you can see people traveling through different years and landing from one era to another. So yes, I think I would take. I would say yes. I would love to.
Yeah, I think it would be fascinating to see what happens in the future. Yeah. How we end up as a species.
Yes, and hopefully we manage to protect and keep this world going, because there are a lot of scary things happening at the moment in the world. And
yeah, very, very true. But thank you again. We will make sure we've got all of the links on this when it goes out. So anyone can click on the link, come through to your page and find out about their glycans. But thank you once again. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Ross. Really enjoyed it as well. Have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Alphagenix Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode. For more resources on Alphagenix and men's health, visit alphagenix.co.uk. Until next time.